Have you ever wanted a 4x4 ute with a bit more grunt under the bonnet? Maybe you're not a fan of diesel and you bemoan the lack of supercharged intercooled V8s you can currently buy. Deep in the suburbs of Melbourne, there's a small and dedicated team of designers and engineers turning out quality, go-fast bits for a wide variety of makes and models. They're called Harrop Engineering, and they've been tweaking and modifying cars for performance since EH and FJ Holdens ruled the roads. Lately, Harrop's attention has been turning towards the growing part of the Australian car market, and that's 4x4 utes. With their expertise, they've been rolling out a bunch of available upgrades for popular makes and models like Colorado and Ranger, looking for extra power, suspension and braking performance. This is the final product, what Harrop calls their Superado, and it's had just about everything thrown at it. You've got some nice flash method race wheels there with some Toyo RT tyres, upgraded suspension, upgraded brakes, bit of bar work around the place as well, nice light bar on the roof there. But what you're really here for is what's under that bonnet. Let's go have a look. Gone is that factory 2.8 litre turbo diesel. This is a 6.2 litre petrol V8 with Harrop's upgraded supercharger on top. That runs through a GM 6L80 6-speed automatic gearbox, so very similar driveline to something like a hotted up Commodore or something like that. This thing has huge amounts of power, but still has off-road capability as well. How much power at the wheels? Harrop measures 396 kilowatts on their hub dyno, along with 825 newton meters. That means there's roughly 465 kilowatts at the flywheel, more than 3 times the power of a stock Colorado. It's not a cheap exercise, this engine conversion, but it does transform a Holden Colorado into what I think is a proper muscle car. 6.2 litres of supercharged V8 under the bonnet. It sounds angry on startup, it idles angry, and it's angry under throttle as well. This engine conversion is over $40,000, and when you add up the rest of the upgrades, there's over 66 grand worth of modifications done. Throw in the purchase price of the vehicle initially and you've moved well into 6-figure territory. That's a huge amount of money, no doubt, but this Colorado is something special. Driving around in a fairly damp, twisty road in the outer suburbs of Melbourne at the moment, and I have to say you've got to be very, very careful with your throttle applications. Definitely nothing mid-corner. And even when you're taking off or rolling speeds, you've got to just ease that power on, otherwise the tyres will start to spin, even though there is an LSD in the rear of this car. The driveline's all changed, but the suspension has changed as well. There's a bit of a lift, different spring rates in the suspension. There's also Shockworks dampers in here, which are specifically tuned for the Superado. And that definitely helps this car handle the huge amounts of power that's under the bonnet. These tyres are Toyo RTs, open countries, and they're a bit of a hybrid between a mud terrain and an all-terrain. Not too aggressive for on-road, so they're not too noisy, and they've still got reasonable grip in the dry and in the wet, but still should be a very good tyre off-road, but we'll see how that goes a bit later. If you're going to buy this Colorado and do the conversion and treat it like a bit of a daily driver, I think you'd be quite happy. The car drives well on road, it's relatively quiet, although there is a bit of drone from this engine and exhaust, around 2,000 RPM cruising along sometimes. But other than that, it's like a four-wheel drive ute. It just happens to have 400 horsepower at the wheels. Sure, a nice HSV or hotted up Falcon would likely do a better job. And if you want a ute, maybe look around for a Maloo or something like that. But this Superado has something that those things do not have. 4-driven wheels, a low-range transfer case and proper ground clearance. In other words, this brutal 4x4 ute should still be capable off-road. You can tell this Colorado has lost a bit of low-range gearing, changing to this different gearbox. Thinks it's got high ratios all through the range, especially first gear, which is great for on-road. You can accelerate a lot faster. You're not changing gears as much, but off-road, you do lose a bit of that compression braking, which is really nice. So that means hill descent control does get a real workout, and you need to cover it with your brakes a fair bit too. But when you're climbing, like this pretty steep rocky climb here, it's not that much of an issue because you've got all of that off-idle torque with this big V8. You just press that pedal the tiniest amount and it starts crawling so slowly. There's no locking diff in the back of this, it's still an LSD like a Colorado. It's a very tight LSD though, you can hear it and you can feel it. It's almost like a locker, not completely, but it does a really good job off-road. This Colorado does have a front locker as well. That's a Harrop Eaton E-locker. That's a full locker, so this thing is really capable off-road. You've got more clearance, you've got more tyres as well, and this V8 is more than happy to sit under 1000 RPM, idling slowly and crawling, making life very easy. Our time with the Harrop Superado was unfortunately cut short by some mechanical troubles. One CV joint on the front end decided to resign from its position, effective immediately, and that turned our four-wheel drive temporarily into a two-wheel drive. We were idling along in low range at the time when it happened, so we're putting the component's failure down to a hard life over the past couple of years. While that's a shame, the failure didn't dampen what is overall a mostly positive experience with the Harrop Colorado. While it's not a cheap exercise, the end product is something truly unique. It feels like a proper muscle car from behind the wheel, but has still retained that four-wheel drive capability that a Colorado has. And it's a combination you can't really get unless you opt for something more expensive again, like a high-end Range Rover or AMG G-Class. And that in itself is something worth celebrating.